Is osteoporosis reversible?
I say this often, pretty much every podcast that I'm on, every show that I do for my own podcast, I generally will say somewhere in there that osteoporosis is almost universally preventable and oftentimes reversible if you have the ability to do the things that we know are good for bone health.
Yeah. And I mean, bone loss is reversible. I think that that's really a safe thing to say because that's a little bit more general. And then when you get into the osteoporosis world, like how long have you been in it? How far have you been in it? What are all the contributing factors leading to bone loss? So, but even for you to say that, and when I heard you say that, like so boldly as you're an orthopedic surgeon, right?
Right.
Which means to me, you are the bone doctors, like you're touching them, manipulating them. So I consider orthopedic surgeons to be the bone doctors. And you were saying osteoporosis is reversible, like those words were on your website, they were on your YouTube videos, and I'm like, whoa, this is amazing. So, okay, so let's go a little bit deeper into what that means then.
Yeah, absolutely. So for me, I look at the diagnosis of osteoporosis as, it's not a great diagnosis in general. We have this thought of, bone density of T-score, and that is the ICD-10, criteria, T-score less than negative 2.5 on DEXA, and that's fine. We have to deal with that. We have to play with that. But I look at it differently, and I think that we should all be looking at bone health differently because really osteoporosis is just a single point on the whole spectrum of bone density, bone quality, and fracture risk. It is just a predefined point that was really defined actually to recommend drugs. So that was the whole thing. When the T-score definition came out in 1994 by the World Health Organization, Fosamax followed with FDA approval in 1995. So it was a clearly defined point on the density scale in order to be able to make a recommendation for a pharmaceutical. And I'm not saying that's wrong. I know you don't love the drugs. I don't love bisphosphonates either. But there's a time and a place for those drugs. And that was what the medical industry needed at the time, was to have something that they could say, well, here is the threshold where fracture risk starts to rise based off of this thing called bone density. Okay, fine. But really, if we in the space who want to reverse osteoporosis, who want to improve bone metabolism, as I call it, then we need to look way beyond that. I mean, way beyond that. Because really, I look at it like this. We are always breaking down and building up bone, right? It's a balance, just like everything in your body is a balance. We replace our bones about every 10 years, the entire skeleton about every 10 years. And it changes a little bit as you age, but that's the average. So if we have enough bone metabolism to break down and build up to replace our entire skeleton every year, then if we're developing osteoporosis, assuming you had reasonable bone density at some point, if you're developing osteoporosis, you're simply breaking down more than you're building up for too long of a period of time. It's that simple. So then if we want to reverse that bone metabolism problem, you simply build more than you break down for a long enough period of time to then climb out of whatever hole you're in and pass that criteria of negative 2.5 as a T-score. So it's simple, but not necessarily easy because, as you said, there are a number of variables and can be some challenging factors in there.
Yeah, and it's just a paradigm shift. It's the way we went. There might have been good intentions. After that, Fosamax 1995 FDA approval came reimbursement approval with Medicare in 1997. And that's when that really took off. And I believe that Fosamax was one of the first blockbuster drugs. But the thing is, that was the medical control of all of this, right? That was, you go to your doctor, you get a DEXA scan, and this is your bones, and what do I do? It's not that we dismissed the person and them having a role. I don't know that we really thought of it that way. We didn't really think of this as a metabolic process. We thought it's progressive, degenerative. It happens as you get older, and are you going to be one of the ones that ends up with osteoporosis?
Yeah.
What we're understanding now, what you do, what I do, what some of the people are coming to realize is there are so many factors, and those are controllable lifestyle factors that we can get involved with.
Yeah, I mean, I hear you say, and I used to say, and I don't say it anymore, but this system is broken. We don't deal with osteoporosis appropriately, and I agree with the second half of that we don't do it correctly in the system. But I actually now really believe, after looking into it, that the system isn't broken. The system is doing what it's designed to do. It just wasn't designed to treat chronic disease. So we have this system that was created at the turn of the century to essentially treat infections, to treat trauma, to help women not die in childbirth with drugs and surgery. But here we are over a century later trying to use the same system to treat ineffectively what are essentially lifestyle problems, right? Heart disease, dementia, osteoporosis. So the system is trying to find a drug that can prevent fracture or at least reduce fracture risk. And that's what those drugs are, all the drugs, an attempt to reduce fracture risk. But it comes at a trade-off, and because it's a lifestyle problem, not a drug deficiency problem, then the drugs are, they have limited capacity to do what we want them to do, right? They have limited capacity to prevent fracture over the long term.
Yeah, I mean, for acute care, I have a hip replacement. I couldn't live without that.
Totally.
So there's definitely the time and the place for Western medicine or allopathic medicine. And then there's the lifestyle part. And I think we just kind of gave our health away to our doctors. The women in this age group, typically 50 plus and maybe even 60 plus, so much respect for your doctor. You go to your doctor and what your doctor says you do. And maybe we weren't as exposed to as much toxins as we are, as much stress as we are. So we were a healthier being going into a doctor and didn't have as many factors of dysfunction, and the bones, and at the end, we're going to get to the longevity of the skeleton, but the bones being the reservoir of minerals, they're going to have an effect by many things that are going wrong. And so that's what it is. You're right. It's the system is not broken. It's that we're actually expecting it to do something that it can't do.
Right.
And we now need to look at ourselves, but that information coming from you, what I'm raising awareness to, when we really realize the lifestyle part of this, that's where we could start to have an effect and be in control.
Yeah, I mean, I think the two things that the current system is really bad at, one is everything lifestyle. So exercise, nutrition, sleep, mindset. It's bad at all those things for lots of reasons. And the second one is hormones. And this system over the last 20 plus years, because of what happened in the early 2000s, became very hesitant to use hormones for anything other than, if anything, symptoms of menopause, but then at the lowest dose for the shortest time. And that has had such a tremendous impact because if you look at the biggest levers for bone health, they are all of the lifestyle pieces plus hormones. So now we are seeing this tidal wave of bone health problems that, honestly, for the vast majority of women, again, could have been prevented.